Hi, thanks for joining us here for the PlacePrint Orientation March 5th, 2015. Our app was on the store this most recent Sunday, version 1, Apple, iOS devices, iPhone, iPad, iPod. Today, after an expedited review, after we realized that the software we initially released didn't function on iPhone 4s and some other older generation devices. After that expedited review, version 2 has been approved and is now available for free on the Apple App Store. Today we want to take a look at what that software does for you, how it can help you, what we're going to do to continue to improve, where we can continue to improve, and make it compelling for individuals and enterprises to use regularly. First and foremost, PlacePrint. One word, PlacePrint. Location intelligence. The most unique social network in the entire world. Anonymous yet unique identifiers for each account that is created. Each time the package hits the phone, a PIN is generated. Let's start with install. The first thing that happens is a prompt asking for location services authorization. Now, this is necessary for anything useful to happen. You must authorize, if you so choose, to give us that privilege in order for the software to work, in order to interact and analyze your behaviors, your patterns. What we strive to be at PlacePrint is the largest collection in the entire world of personal and enterprise movements in regards to location, patterns, directions, behaviors of the individual's movement, essentially. After the software installed, after the acceptance of location services, you are greeted with a user interface with 4 options. We'll call them 4 tabs. Number 1, the message board. Number 2, the ping option and pin identifier. Number 3, the radius filter. And number 4, terms. Let's start from the beginning. Right at the beginning, you have the message board open up. You don't even have to do anything. What you're going to see there is the entire world's inputs, messages, alerts, whatever they have to say, whether they are speaking to someone in the same room or whether they're speaking to someone in a different continent. That is initially by default what's going to be displayed. Now, as you'll see later, that radius option, tab bar number 3, allows you to filter out the messages and their proximity to you. For example, if I don't want to see messages from people in Africa, I only want to see messages from people in the same exact room as me that are using PlacePrint software. That's what the 3rd tab, the radius options, will allow you to do. Now, on the first tab, on the message board, you have the ability to read, scroll, tap, and an alert will pop up and you can get more information about when the message was posted, the full content of the message if it was not displayed in full initially, and you will see a watered down version of the user's PIN. And we'll explain in a few moments why we water that PIN down. I will just say this now. The PIN is extremely unique. It's confidential. It's only shared by that individual who represents the PIN. Of course, PlacePrint, as an entity does have access to it, but privacy is taken very seriously here, and we try our hardest to protect your identity. Even though it is anonymous, that PIN does represent a substantial amount of your behaviors and your location patterns. So on the first tab, we have the messages. We can scroll, we can click, we can read more of them, their time, etc. And we can also input our own. Above the messages, above the message input, is a map, a very small map in regards to, or rather relative to the size of the message board, but enough to give you an idea of where you are, and it also displays your address in full. Now, I do want to mention the messages that you are seeing on the message board are stripped and watered down also in the sense that they do not display any integers. They do not display any numbers. So if you're at address 123 Buttermilk Pike, Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, 41017, for example, you're not going to see the 123, and you're not going to see the zip code, 41017. We've done that again also for the privacy of the user. So that covers the first tab, the message board. Let's take a consideration now of the second tab. Again, the ping refresh rate and the PIN identifier. Let's start with the ping refresh rate. As we mentioned, we access your location services. Now, you may say, well, doesn't that use my battery and data? Absolutely. And we keep that in mind. We do not want to waste your resources. The way we see it, your resources, our resources are the same thing. If you don't have a phone to use, we don't have data. If you don't have a battery to use, we don't have data. We want to know as much as possible about you, as much as you'll let us know, in regards to primarily your location patterns. So we are always trying to improve, and again, we sent out version 2 almost 4 days after version 1 hit the store. We sent an improved version out that hit on this fact in particular, trying to preserve your resources, which in effect is preserving our resources. Saving your battery, saving your data, that is in our interest. The ping refresh rate is by default set at 5 minutes. Now, if you click refresh on the message board, which is an option, or you send a message on the message board, which is tab 1, ultimately you are going to trigger a location refresh automatically. Now, if you're not doing anything like that, and your phone is on background mode, you're ultimately going to have a 5-minute location refresh. Now, if you are an entity that needs to have something quicker every 5 seconds, for example, you have that option. There are other options also, but we've illustrated sufficiently 5 minutes versus 5 seconds. Now let us address the PIN identifier. As we mentioned, when you open the application for the first time, you will be assigned a unique PIN. Now this is a PIN that has numbers and letters. As we mentioned, on the message board, the PIN is stripped of numbers. And we'll explain why in a few moments. But on the second tab, the PIN identifier, for your use, no one else can see that unless, of course, you share that with them. It could be a screenshot that you send to your friends. You could copy it, and you could paste it into a message in another format and send it out. You could place it into the tab 1, the message board, and send it out. And of course, we do not recommend that because we encourage you to keep it private. We encourage you to treat it as confidential, classified information. Give it to those you trust. Treat it as if it's your cell phone or social security number because it represents your location. Everything you do on the device, it is associated with. pin identifier, ping refresh rate. That's the second tab. Moving on to the third tab. As we mentioned, the default message board gives you a view of the entire world. If you want to view messages of individuals, entities that are in a different proximity, a more refined and filtered out proximity, you have the power to do so. If you want to, for example, view messages that are posted from the same room, you have that ability to filter out to that level, to that radius, which is very, very small radius. So obviously there's going to be less messages in that than there would be in the entire world. So don't be alarmed if you switch your radius and all of a sudden the message board has less messages than it did when you started. That is intentional, because again, you have made the decision to filter out messages that are specifically close to you, which can be very useful if you're trying to have a type of communication with an individual in the same room, as mentioned, or the same street, or the same building. You know, these are all your options, and that is up to you to decide. Now, the fourth tab is the terms. Very self-explanatory. What we're discussing right now is included in there, along with some additional concepts that we encourage you to read and which are ultimately placed in the App Store description when you download the software from Apple. So we've covered the 4 tab bars on the iOS Apple devices software package. Now, we want to encourage you to use that as much as possible. We want to encourage you to post as much compelling information and exciting, insightful conversation into the PlacePrint messaging system. But that's not all PlacePrint is. PlacePrint.xyz, also known as www.placeprint.xyz. What you have the ability to do there is interact with the data and users in a different regard. Now, currently, the highlights of the PlacePrint.xyz website, other than the fact that you can run it on a standard browser, not necessarily limited to Apple devices, other than that fact, the highlights of that location or domain is the fact that you can take a pin, whether it's yours or something, a pin that was given to you with the authorization of another user, and you can in fact pinpoint their location. If we imagine our starting point here and we travel all the way up here and we have our software pinging all of the traveling duration, the pin locate on PlacePrint.xyz allows you to track and view in full the address of that respective pin. So again, in the messaging system, tab 1, user pins and addresses are watered down. But if you take your pin that's given to you or derived from your software or from other individuals that they willingly gave you, you can take that to the PlacePrint.xyz website, put it in the pin locate, and you can ultimately see in real time that individual that is correlated with the pin moving. You can view their patterns. You can have an up-to-date assessment of where exactly they are, which of course you can imagine is very useful in many regards, whether it be emergency services, whether it be a logistical firm, whether it be a leisure relationship that you're attempting to understand more about, all of the above and more. Also on PlacePrint.xyz we have an API. Currently the API that we offer is for the messages. So if you're a developer and you want to take the messages that are posted into our system and build your own app around them, we give you that ability. We allow you to take the watered down pins, the watered down addresses, but the full content of the messages, and a watered down longitude latitude, and insert them into your own software. Extremely powerful. So with that said, let's recap what we've discussed today. On the Apple App Store, version 2, PlacePrint. Install the software, accept location services if you wish. Tab bar 1, messages, insert, read, and your current location. Tab bar 2, ping refresh rate and your user pin, which is very unique. Keep it safe. Tab bar 3, the filtration system, the radius in which messages are displayed, whether it is extremely small proximity, close to you, or extremely wide and entire world, your decision. And of course, tab bar 4, the terms. Now, again, the other aspect that we covered today is the PlacePrint.xyz domain that's accessible through any conventional browser, in which case you can access the pin locate and the API. As you can see, we have substantial room to grow, and we intend on doing so. We appreciate you joining us here today for the PlacePrint Orientation, March 5th, 2015. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send us an email. contact@placeprint.xyz. Again, PlacePrint, one word. PlacePrint. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you on the PlacePrint. Take care.